On April 20th, 2010, the United States experienced the largest offshore oil spill in its history. To discover the impact of the blowout, scientists from around the world converged on the Gulf of Mexico.
It's one of the first oil spills where enough resources have been put aside to study it for 10 years after the spill.
Why are so many dolphins in the Gulf of Mexico losing their young? Why are so many pregnancies failing?
I'm using DNA barcoding to look at gut contents of unidentifiable fish. I guess I'm a fish detective.
This is really the first step in making the marine snow. When we started this, we didn't know it was going to work as well as it has worked.
We have the ability to produce the same conditions in this laboratory that are in the deep sea. It's like sitting on the floor of the ocean and watching the droplets and bubbles that are rising under these extreme conditions.
The purpose of our cruise here is to look at how oil might spread in a future oil spill.
There'll be 2 ships, 3 planes, and they need to be coordinated.
We're going to get bounced around a little bit. 230.
Our research group studies the cardiac impacts of oil on fish, especially looking at the heart.
3! There we go.
This is what we live for, what we work for, all the time spent behind the computer.
Biopsy.
We only do that really so we can get out here.
Look at her, she's gonna swim right off.
It's really exciting to see how all the pieces come together, where all these different people are involved in all these components.
Today, an international team of researchers are focused on the Gulf of Mexico. These are some of their stories. Intimate portraits of research, innovation, discovery.
Kure, Japan, a coastal city that has for almost 100 years been a base for Japanese naval submarines. In a strange way, the life of Paul Tidwell has become centered here. Tidwell is an American treasure hunter who seems to enjoy being an elusive and somewhat mysterious figure. He has spent years trying to discover the fate of ships that have sunk while carrying secret and highly valuable cargo. One of these was a giant submarine that left here late in World War II. Now we plunge over 3 miles into the deep and recapture one of the most fascinating secret stories of World War II. We seek a treasure-laden submarine sent to help Nazi Germany stave off final defeat. Join us on the search for the submarine I-52. Mir 1 will be the first sub down. Anatoly Sagalievich is a conspicuous and popular figure. Since the collapse of the Soviet Union, he has scrambled to keep the Mirs in service, combining science with show business. Appearing in the movie Titanic has made the Mirs famous, but it's still hard work to keep them busy. It will take about 4 hours for the Mirs to descend 3 miles. To conserve power, they are simply allowed to fall slowly into the abyss. The pressure on the submersible is enormous. On their first dive, novices are alarmed as condensation drips down the walls. They are jokingly told everything is okay, unless it tastes of salt. They are as deep as Titanic, just over 2 miles, with another mile to go. There is nothing to be seen but featureless mud, and then, incredibly, a few small fish. Then, bits and pieces of machinery, and a metal box that demands to be reported. I-52's manifest lists 146 gold bars stored in metal boxes. Further examination must wait until they return to the surface. They move on towards I-52. The submarine is at first unrecognizable. Its bow has been torn off, revealing a tangled mass of pipes and wires. Then the forward deck. Much of the wooden decking is still in place. Close examination reveals fascinating details. Guns still loaded, but their threat now muted by delicate sea anemones. Working together, the two mirrors can light up and photograph I-52 far more effectively than a single submersible. On the conning tower, they find a funnel-like radar apparatus. Designed to detect ships on the surface, it could not save I-52. It is soon apparent that if the gold is still inside I-52, it will be impossible to reach without special equipment. They can only peer eagerly into open ports and hatchways. Below decks, much of I-52's inner hull seems to be intact. Hours spent exploring here seem like minutes. This is truly a place where time stands still. It becomes more and more evident that the gold is probably still stored somewhere inside I-52. They surface in stormy weather in more ways than one. The last dive is reserved for technical chores, so in effect, the expedition and the treasure hunt are over.
It's hard to find something more profound as an engineered object than the F1 engine. The most powerful single-chamber rocket engine ever designed and manufactured. 65 of these engines flew, and there were 0 failures.
The F1 engine represents the pinnacle of achievement in liquid rocket propulsion. It was the most powerful liquid-fueled engine ever known to mankind. 1.5 million pounds of thrust per engine, and 5 engines combined, 7.5 million pounds of thrust. It was just massive brute force technology that propelled men out of Earth's atmosphere and onto the moon.
Apollo 11, I was 5 years old, and it really was a seminal moment for me. I remember watching it on our living room TV. I had the excitement of my parents and my grandparents. Little kids can pick up that kind of excitement. They know that something extraordinary is happening. That definitely became a passion of mine. You know, you don't get to choose your passions choose you. It does take courage to explore.
Yeah.
When you explore, you're doing things that nobody has done before, and things can always go wrong when you're doing something for the first time.
It's a huge dredge job to get one of those out.
You can feel it walking around the ship. Everyone's excited. There is some level of trepidation because we know there are no guarantees.
The team that's been put together for this project is outstanding, and I have confidence that we're going to find what we're looking for.
There are really interesting parallels. That we were cutting edge in the 60s to go to the moon, and with this ship and this technology, these ROVs, we are on the cutting edge of deep ocean exploration as well.
It's an extremely challenging environment to work in. It's extremely challenging technologically, and it's a remote place in the world to operate, and that makes everything we're doing extremely difficult.
3 miles below where I'm standing right now is a wonderland that is testament to the Apollo program. It looks like a magic sculpture garden with all of these pieces from different missions that are, in some cases, perfectly preserved, and in other cases, twisted into these beautiful shapes.
Working 3 miles down in the deep ocean, and our robots are like marionettes on 3-mile-long cables. Being able to control those robots is a fantastic deep water ballet.
The storm coming in tonight predicted to be 50-foot seas and 60-mile-an-hour winds.
Mariners all over the world have a number of superstitions. You're not supposed to ring the ship's bell. You're not supposed to bring backpacks on board a ship, which unfortunately we did. We've got lots of bananas, and you're not supposed to bring bananas on board either. We are in the Bermuda Triangle. Somehow, we now have the longest weather hold that this experienced crew has ever seen.
We're working over a mile deeper than the Titanic. The recovery of something that weighs 10 tons from this depth is not an easy feat. It's very dangerous lifting that kind of weight. The cables are under a lot of tension. There are a lot of things that could go wrong.
It's incredibly exciting seeing these objects come on deck.
07 on the bottom. Something 9, all as such.
The original vision of recovering these Apollo engines could never have been made possible without all these experts on board.
We're headed back into Cape Canaveral, Florida, where we're going to bring these engines home.
One of the objectives of the expedition was to recover an engine from Apollo 11. When the engines arrived here, it was undetermined whether that had been a success or not. By chance, one of our technicians was looking at the thrust chamber behind me and using black light discovered the serial number 2044, which turned out to be the center thrust chamber for the Apollo 11 mission.
You're dealing with an amazing collection of metals that have been put together to produce the most powerful machines ever built by mankind.
If this results in one young explorer, one young adventurer, one young inventor doing something amazing that helps the world, I'm totally fulfilled. Maybe they'll build the next F1.
Amelia Earhart is known not just for flying, but also for her wisdom. One of the favorite quotes is, "Adventure is worthwhile in itself." We have certainly lived true to that here on the Mermaid Vigilance. Teamwork. And discovery. We've used new technology with the AUV Remus 6000 and seen geology on the seafloor never before viewed by human eyes.
The purpose of today's dive was to collect data to validate the operational readiness of the sensors. That tests both high-res, low-res sonars and camera all checked out positive. All collected data we need. Yes, we're ready to go.
Working together, Alan Eustace, Nauticos, Hui, Rockwell Collins, Seaward Foundation, NOAA, and others all played a role to help us finish a search area first determined nearly 2 decades ago. More than 3,600 square miles was mapped in detail, equal in area to the state of Connecticut. As we end our expedition, we are eager to return to our homes and families while still looking forward to future adventures together.
Stay clear of the brow of the lower chest. We'll go ahead and light off the bow thruster.
The Weatherbird 2 is on the second leg of a 2-week cruise. At 115 feet, it's one of the better equipped research vessels working the waters of the Gulf of Mexico. Its current mission is to collect and analyze fish and soil samples near the site of the Deepwater Horizon oil spill.
And that'll be in the site DSH-10, which is at a depth of 1,500 meters.
Dave Hollander and Steve Morawski are leading a team of oceanographers from the University of South Florida,
Valley, which is a very important area.
Working closely with the ship's captain, Brendan Baumeister. They've spent weeks developing their itinerary.
We're really interested in the fish all along the area north of the Deepwater Horizon
because time aboard the Weatherbird is limited and expensive, their plan is to divide into 2 teams and work around the clock.
Okay, well that'll put us in a few hours behind, so it looks like we'll probably arrive to the first fishing site like mid-afternoon tomorrow, which will give you time to do
Running behind schedule and with the clock ticking, the team is facing one other time-related problem. Though the spill happened 6 years ago, Gulf Coast communities are still pressing scientists for more information, more answers about the environmental impact of Deepwater Horizon. The Weatherbird motored through the night, putting the research team back on schedule. Traditionally, every scientific cruise is given a nickname. This one is called the Mud and Blood Cruise. Steve Morawski's team is getting ready to catch fish. Though working in the field is never easy, August can be particularly brutal. It's 8 a.m., and the temperature is already approaching 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It will be a very long day.
What you're seeing is a long line fishing operation. We're setting out 5 miles of baited hooks. There's 500 hooks on that set.
Their equipment is similar to what the commercial fishing fleet uses, except for one key difference.
At the beginning and end of each of the long line sets, we put this recorder on. And what it is a temperature and pressure recorder. This is the recorder itself. You can see it's quite small. It also has a clock in it. So it tells us exactly when we set it out and when we retrieved it.
To help with longlining, Tia Clark and Jorge Hernandez joined the crew. When not working aboard the Weatherbird, they are, in fact, commercial fishermen.
We're trying to catch a representative sample of the fish community in this particular location off Southwest Pass, Louisiana, but we fished all over the Gulf. We fished almost 200 different locations.
The team's ultimate goal is to track the recovery and health of fish. Not very far away, in Panama City, Florida, Dean Grubbs, a world-renowned expert on the ecology of sharks, is preparing for an 18-day research cruise. He is joined by colleagues from Florida State University. The team's mission is to catch deep ocean fish living near the site of the 2010 blowout. Their goal is to create a baseline of information, as well as to discover the long-term impact on fish living in areas covered with oil carried by marine snow.
When everyone realized that the spill occurred at about 5,000 feet deep, the first question folks started asking was, what lives down there? What organisms, what communities are actually being affected by this oil right now? So I updated the schedule.
Dean Grubbs and the vessel's captain go over the itinerary.
So I should get us in before midnight. Sound good?
12 hours later, they reach their first research site.
So we're getting ready to bait up. So on these sets, we set 50 hooks. They range from little tiny 10-aught hooks that take little tiny baits up to 16-aught hooks that take basically the whole side of a carcass. That allows us to basically catch everything from the smallest of sharks up to the largest of sharks, the big snake eels and that kind of thing, all on the same set. I think I got it.
The team puts out a series of baited hooks.
All clear.
About 2 hours later,
We ready?
they're ready to pull in the lines.
Fish on. Whenever we get a fish on, we'll ID the fish. It'll get a specimen number. From there, if it's a shark, then it'll get a temperature taken. and blood sampled by Bianca for stress physiology work. And then it'll get measured and weighed. 96. And John will take liver and bile. Those are all the samples that will go for the toxicology work.
They will work through the night and into the morning. For oceanographers, these marathon sessions are often a time for reflection.
When I was about 7 years old, I actually caught a little Atlantic sharp-nosed shark. And I told my parents I was going to be a marine biologist. I went through stages where I wanted to be a pro football player and a rock star. But eventually I came back to being a marine biologist, and so that's the career path I chose.
This is Dean Grubb's 15th cruise since the spill.
Seagra, 11-aught.
The information he and his team gather is critical to discovering the long-term impact of oil on the health of deep ocean animals. Bianca Prohaska is a PhD candidate studying biology at Florida State University.
I take the whole blood and I spin it down in the centrifuge, and then I'm able to get the plasma, which separates from the red blood cells. And that's what I'm gonna look at and see what reproductive condition fish are in.
And when all of the samples have been worked up and all the data is logged in, there are still chores to be done. On a small vessel with a limited budget and crew, everyone chips in. No one is excused, no matter how many advanced degrees you have. After going nearly 24 hours nonstop, some team members try to catch a few winks of sleep.
We do keep a pretty intense schedule out here and get maybe 4 hours of, I don't call it sleep because you're on a rolling ship. For folks that aren't used to it, it can be pretty rough on them their very first trip, but your body gets used to it.
What happens next will really test the team's endurance and strength.
Got a big fish, got a big 6-gill shark coming.
Everyone rushes to the stern. It's extremely rare to see a live 6-gilled shark.
I bet she's 1,000 pounds at least. We're gonna test that winch. Somebody hold that a second. She's almost too big for the stretcher.
This is one of the world's largest sharks, and its appearance is similar to fossil sharks, dating back roughly 200 million years.
Go out with the A-frame just a little bit for me. Think they'll hold close. Okay, now up. Real slow, real slow. Keep coming up. Got to do this fast, guys. Okay, hold it, hold it. 1, 2, 3. There we go. Now we're talking. All right, measurement. A lot of people think about the dangers of dealing with these sharks, and there's certainly dangers. Joe, caudal fin has been bitten. A rolling boat, rough seas. You're working with scalpels and hypodermic needles, taking blood samples and bile samples. Working on the deck of a research ship can be quite dangerous. We try to get her in within about 2 to 3 minutes, but they're pretty tough animals.
They say that once you look into the eye of a 6-gill, you'll never forget it.
All right, let's get her overboard.
The team is now in a race to get the shark back in the water as soon as possible.
Out with the A-frame. Go ahead and let her down a little bit. Yeah, just about. Down. Okay, hold what you got. Look at her. She's gonna swim right off. Woo-hoo!
For the next 18 days, Dean Grubbs and his crew of scientists will endure harsh weather conditions, lack of sleep, and backbreaking work.
For those of us that are field biologists, this is what we live for, what we work for, all the time spent behind the computer, writing grant proposals, analyzing data, writing papers. We only do that really so we can get out here on the boat and collect data at sea. I think to the normal person, they think we're crazy wanting to come out here and stay up for hours on end on a rolling ship. But this is like space exploration to fish biologists, being able to do work in the deep sea like this and see potentially new species to science and a lot of different species that very few people have ever seen.
After years of gathering information about deep ocean fish, Dean Grubbs is cautiously optimistic.
This has become the largest survey of deep water sharks ever conducted. What we've seen is that the toxicological effects of the oil actually kept ramping up for 2.5 or 3 years after the spill, and then started coming back down. I'm cautiously optimistic that the effects of the spill were relatively short-lived and moderate, but these animals grow so slowly, they reproduce slowly, so it takes a long time for these effects to work their way up the food chain to these really slow-growing animals, and I think it'll take at least 10 years before we're able to see if they're recovering.